Hey guys, welcome back to the Passive Money Podcast. If you haven't seen this our channel before, we're just regular guys that have navigated ourselves out of the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, and we're sharing our journey with you on struggles that have led to our financial success.
Yeah, with that being said, again, this is all about education about finances. This is not financial advice. If you want financial advice, reach out to a CPA or something like that. But what we're trying to do on this channel is to give you our struggles, like Alex said, that led to our success. And so take the things that are good and try to avoid the negative things that happen to us. So you're not repeating history and falling into the same pitfalls that we fell into growing up. But the things that actually work for us, hopefully you can implement them in your life so they will make you better in the financial landscape overall. So starting off, we're sitting here in Alex's house here in sunny Florida. As you see outside right now, it's not that sunny outside, but 99% of the time it is sunny in Florida. So
That's not true.
all right, well, don't mess up the propaganda here. It's sunny in Florida. Everybody look at Florida as being sunny, and that's how we're gonna look at it. But with all that being said, so starting out, we got this house. So it's a nice house, by the way. But the thing is what age did you actually purchase this house?
I purchased this house when I had turned 21. I signed the contract for it to be built 3 days after my birthday.
Okay, cool. So was 21 like the age that you were shooting for, or was it just happened to be you was in that financial stability time that you could?
Yeah, it was just a psychological age I wanted to get a house at, which is kind of funny now that I look back on it because if I had gotten the same house, say a year or two before when I still could have afforded it, um, it would have been at a cheaper rate or at a cheaper price than I paid. So
Right.
I don't know why I had waited up until someone, but that is the age that I had.
So with you and your girlfriend at the time, now your wife, when y'all was living in the apartment and then you transitioned to buying a house, what was that thought process like with you? What was the conversation y'all was having as far as the financial aspect of moving from an apartment to buying a house?
Before I had met her, it was my goal to get a house. So going into that relationship, I already had enough money for the down payment of the house, and I, spoken to her about my goal of wanting to get a house. And by that point of speaking to her about the house, we were already engaged and then about to get married. So we went ahead and closed on the house.
So what was that process like, just going through buying a house first time? Did you reach out to people and ask them for advice about buying a house? Did you look at prefab homes? Because this house was built brand new, correct?
Correct.
So did you look at other homes before, previous owner homes? Did the real estate agent have you running around everywhere? So how did you get to, hey, I'm in an apartment, to, hey, I'm about to build a house?
Yeah, so when I had turned 21, like that day, I was like, well, I don't want to prolong this. I told myself all along that I would get a house at 21, let me jump into it. I'd spoken with the real estate agent around that time, leading up until I turned 21, to get familiar with the process as far as how I would go about starting that. It was completely new to me. I had no idea how to work with the lender or how to work with the real estate agent. Later on, after getting the house, learning you don't even really need a real estate agent. But that was the route I had taken. I looked at only one house prior to getting this house, and in getting this house, I didn't know that it was going to need to be built.
Right.
I didn't. My opinion, or not my opinion, but my way of thinking at the time was the only way to build a house was like you buy your own plot of land and then you get like subcontractors to build the house for you. You have to have like an engineer showing you what plans there are. Create the house with them. I didn't know that there was builders that had select models that you could pick from and they'll just build the house. So when I told her, hey, I'm always passing by this one community and it looks really nice. Can we go look at the houses there? And she said, yeah, we'll go talk to the sales rep. So I didn't know what that meant. So after the previous house we looked at, she took me there. And speaking with him, he was showing us basically there's all these empty lots. There's no houses in this division. So you would be building a house and it would take a 6-month process. Um, so going into him with that, I started, I guess, getting familiar with the process of building, not, not the other way where I mentioned where you could get with subcontractors and build the exact home you want, but, picking a model in which you like.
So once you signed the contract and they started building the house, what was the feedback you was getting from your peers, from family and friends about the whole process?
A lot of excitement. A lot of people were excited and saying that it was going to be a great investment for me, which I come to find out that it's not very true.
So then now, speaking of, the house being an investment. So after buying this house and now you're living in it and things like that, what have you learned as you matured financially about buying the house you live in? Is buying the house you live in a good investment, and what's your thought process? And explain a little bit how it flipped from, the former of, hey, it's being a great investment to what you're thinking of it is now.
My thoughts on it is it's definitely not an investment. There's no income or cash flow coming out of the property you live in. Even if you're renting out one of the rooms, which we had done at one point, it's still a negative cash flow if we're going to be technical about it. There's, I guess, some benefits that you don't get in an apartment. But then there's also some benefits being in an apartment, such as repairs are free.
Right.
Being in your own home, there's additional costs on top of the mortgage. You have repairs, you have taxes, there's, homeowners insurance. If you don't put enough down, then you have mortgage insurance. That was, totally new to me. So there's a lot of additional costs that you should be aware of before going into buying a home, if you're currently renting, I think. So that way you have a more familiar idea with what your budget's going to look like. Some of the benefits, I guess, in living in your own home is being able to write off the interest you pay on your mortgage and write off your property taxes, and then getting the appreciation out of the home. But at the same time, I'm sure we're going to go into that, but if you're not making additional payments to pay off, additional interest, you'll start to see in a long-term application of paying down your home, you're paying almost double for the home that you purchased and just paying that mortgage rate for 30 years.
Right. Yeah, that's the trick the bank does. So you sit there and I always use this philosophy when I talk to people about buying a home. And I agree with you 100% that buying a home you live in is not an investment. And of course, that's been the motto of America, the American dream, buy a house, it's a great investment. But the truth of it is, it's a great investment, but just not for the person who's buying the house and who's living in the house. The great investment is for the person that's lending the money for the home buyer to buy the house. So that's the trick that they do. So I always ask somebody, if let's say this house costs $200,000. I know it doesn't, but let's just say. And then I always say, when they say, hey, they're going to buy a house, and I just say, well, why don't I give you $200,000 now, and in 30 years from now, you pay me $500,000. And they always say, no, that's a bad idea. Why would I do that? But in truth, that's what the bank doing. And they don't show you that figure, and it's called the amortization calendar. And it's a 360-month calendar of the house costs X, but if you make every payment all the way to the end of 30 years, this is how much you'll pay on it. And it's saying the same thing I am in layman's term. And that's what all that paperwork, when you go into closing, and I know you went to closing, there was about 50, 60 sheets of paper you had to buy.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what it's saying. So once you look at it as, and we'll upload one for a house that costs $145,000. And I was showing you that even at $145,000, you put 25% down on the house, and then you amortize that all the way out for 30 years, 360 months, that you'll still pay double for the house than what the original list cost was.
Right. Yeah, I remember for our house, we paid $212,950. That was the total amount. the sale of the home. But taking the 360 months at the end, it shows us that we're going to be paying $352,000.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, was that about 75% increase?
Right. And did you do a 30-year mortgage, or did you?
Yeah, 30-year mortgage.
At around what?
A little over 4% interest.
Right. And then now you look forward to it. Now it'll be higher, especially at the rise of the interest rates. Now it's at about 5%. So that number will be higher if somebody's buying a house today.
Right.
So that was one of the aspects that I always try to bring to people. And people contact me all the time about financial endeavors and things that's going on in their life. And my ideal for people that's, you know, your age, and again, you're doing very well for yourself. And then people that's not in your, you know, financial brainwave or mindset, always tell them you got to start looking at it a different way. You got to start looking at it maybe instead of your first house, maybe buying a duplex.
Right.
And then you living in one side, you rent out the other side, and then you charge the tenant the rent for the whole thing. And then that will get you to pay down the principal way faster, so you're not paying all that interest and paying double, triple for what the house is worth.
Right, and that way you can essentially live for free. I mean, the other tenant is paying off your mortgage, so.
Right, and that's a way that you can actually maneuver this market and actually put more money in your pocket and do things like that. When it comes to, as far as a house being an investment, again, living in a house, my view is the same way of the Grant Cardones and the Robert Kiyosaki's. Is a house that you live in is not an investment because, like you said before, it doesn't bring in cash flow. It doesn't put money in your pocket. And then one day we'll go over a cash flow statement or income statement, and we'll show the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset is something that actually, after bills are paid, it actually puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that you just pay it towards. And a house that you live in, you're just paying towards. A rental property, on the other hand, is something you might have a mortgage on there, but if you set the deal right or you set the structure right, you pay a mortgage on it, but the rents that's coming in or the cash flows coming in is more than the mortgage, so there is cash flow coming in your pocket at a monthly basis, or if you have mobile homes at a weekly basis or something like that, or Airbnb probably at a daily basis. And that's just different aspects of owning a home and renting a home. When is a home an investment? Again, living is just living. You're living. It's going to cost. And some of the benefits, liabilities you already touched on, as in if you did the math, and let's say you rented 30 years and then you owned a home for 30 years. In 30 years, especially in windy hurricane Florida here, you're going to have to replace hot water tank. That's going to cost you between $1,100 and $1,500 a watt. Me, I've only been living in my house about 8 years. I've changed the hot water tank 3 times. Then you have the roof, and then, you know, some places that a roof will last 30 years. But in Florida, because of hurricanes and wind and things like that, you might get 15 years out there. So that's twice you're gonna have to replace the roof. That's, let's just say $20,000 a wop. So that's another $40,000 on top of the mortgage, on top of all the other repairs, on top of insurance, on top of property taxes and things like that. So all that's extra cost. As a renter, you don't have. You just paying your rent, and of course the rent will escalate over time, but
so will your mortgage.
Yeah, your mortgage will escalate over time too, especially as the property value rises, and your insurance will rise also based on the appreciation of the house, especially in this time here where inflation is real high. That insurance, it costs more to rebuild the house in case of this catastrophic event. So you got to pay a higher premium on your mortgage because it costs more. You got to raise the premium and the cost that it will take to cover to buy the house. So all those things do rise. People think 30-year fix mean it will be the same price for 30 years, but the truth of it is it won't be the same price for 30 years.
Just your principal and interest.
Yeah, just the principal and interest, but the insurance and the property taxes will rise with the inflated value of your house.
I mean, to give an example on that, it's only been 2 years that we've been in this house, 2 years exactly. And when we first closed on the home, we were paying $1,302, I believe, every month, as far as the mortgage along with the escrow. 2 years later, we're paying $1,550, so it's gone up $250, and that $250 increase is purely because of taxes going up and mortgage insurance, or not mortgage insurance, but property insurance.
Right. And that's the thing people don't understand. And again, you're not getting cash flow from the house because you're living in the house. You're getting cash flow from other areas, but not living in the house.
Right.
So just trying to convey something to the audience here is a house that you live in is not an investment.
Right.
Yeah, you can flip it and then sell it for a higher price. But in the truth of it is, if you did the maths, and I'm a big believer of men lie, women lie, numbers don't. But if you do the math of if you buy a house, let's just use $100,000 house to keep the math simple. If you buy $100,000 house today, and then 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you sell it for $125,000. People think automatically, oh, I made $25,000. But then when you add in all the repairs you did, all the interest, all the taxes, and everything you did, if you add up all those monthly payments together, and then you see how much you didn't pay down on the house, you really lost money on the deal. That's why the government doesn't allow, when you sell a house and you don't have more than a $500,000 profit, you don't have to pay tax on it. Because the government knows the secret that the house that you live in is really not an investment. The house you live in is a liability. That's why they don't tax you on the profit. Right. It's not this, oh, the government loves us, so they don't want us to tax us on our investments. It's because they know in reality, you're losing money.
Right. It's not so much the house that is not an investment, it's how you use that house.
Correct. Correct.
You could live in that house like we talked about in the duplex, and it could be an investment if it's cash flowing above what you're paying in mortgage. But if you're simply just living there and you're paying the expenses out of your own pocket, it's a liability you have to take care of.
Right. And in your instance with the duplex, if you sell a duplex for a higher value, then the side that you live in, they won't count that towards the taxes. But the other side that you sold, if you sell it, they count the appreciation in value as a tax to you because you made a profit on an investment.
Exactly.
That's the difference between the two.